They called it a miracle, a glowing paint, soft, beautiful, mesmerizing. It lit up the dark, and it promised something new, something modern, something safe. Factories began to hire young women, dozens of them. They sat for hours, carefully painting watch dials, numbers, letters, tiny details, all covered in that glowing substance. To keep their brushes sharp, they used a simple trick. They would shape the tip with their lips. Again and again, dip, paint, lips, every single day. No one warned them. No one told them to stop. In fact, they were encouraged. Managers walked past them, supervisors watched closely, and everything seemed normal, even beautiful. Sometimes, the girls would laugh. They would paint their nails, touch their dresses, just for fun. And in the dark, they glowed, faint, soft, almost magical. It felt harmless, like something out of a dream. But slowly, something began to change. At first, it was nothing. A small fatigue, a strange weakness, easy to ignore, easy to explain. But it didn't go away. It stayed, and it grew. Some of the girls began to look pale. Their energy faded. Their smiles became forced. But they kept working, because nothing seemed wrong. The company said it was safe. The experts agreed. Everything was under control. So they trusted it. They trusted the work. They trusted the glow. And they kept going, day after day, brush after brush, until their bodies began to respond, quietly, slowly, from the inside. And by the time they realized something was wrong, it was already too late. At first, it didn't seem connected. One girl got sick, then another, the same symptoms, the same slow decline. But no one could explain it. The factories stayed open. The work continued, and the glowing paint was still used. Some of the girls began to feel tired. Not normal tired, something deeper, like their bodies were slowly giving up. Then the signs became harder to ignore. Their teeth started to loosen, not all at once, one at a time. A slight shift, a strange feeling. Then, gone. Sometimes with pain, sometimes without. And then came something worse. A smell, faint at first, then stronger, unnatural. It didn't come from their clothes. It didn't come from the room. It was coming from them, from inside. Doctors were confused. Some said infection. Some blamed poor hygiene. Some even blamed the girls themselves. But the condition kept spreading. One girl returned to the dentist. This time, it wasn't just a tooth. When the doctor touched her jaw, it moved. Soft, weak, unstable. He froze. He had never seen anything like it. And after that, the pain never stopped. Sharp, constant. It spread through their jaws, into their heads, down their bodies. Some couldn't sleep. Others couldn't stand. Their bodies were breaking down from the inside. And still, they kept working. They needed the money. And no one told them to stop. The company insisted everything was safe. They brought in experts, published reports, all saying the same thing. There was no danger. The girls were mistaken. Or worse, they were lying. And that changed everything. Now they weren't just sick. They were alone. No help, no answers, only pain and a growing realization. Something inside them was killing them. Slowly, silently. And no one was willing to admit it. By now, they knew something was wrong. This was no longer a coincidence. Too many girls were sick. Too many were suffering. And some were already dying. The truth was getting closer, but no one wanted to say it out loud. Then one of them decided to speak. Her name was Grace. She had seen what was happening. She had watched her friends fall apart, and she felt it in her own body. The same weakness, the same pain. So she refused to stay silent. She went to the company, asked questions, demanded answers, but they dismissed her, said there was no proof, said the paint was safe, said the problem wasn't theirs. So she kept going. She spoke to doctors, to journalists, to anyone who would listen. And slowly, the story began to spread. But the company reacted fast. They hired their own experts, ran their own tests, and published their own conclusions. Everything was safe. Everything was normal. The girls were exaggerating, or worse, they were lying. The blame shifted from the company to the victims, and that made everything harder. Because now, speaking out had a cost. Some girls lost their jobs. Others were ignored. Some were threatened. But the sickness didn't stop. It only got worse. More pain, more damage, more silence. Until one detail changed everything. A doctor decided to look deeper, not just at the symptoms, but at the cause. He studied their bones, tested the tissue, and what he found couldn't be ignored. Radiation inside their bodies, inside their bones. The same substance they worked with every day, the same glowing paint. It wasn't harmless. It wasn't safe. It was poisoning them, slowly, relentlessly. And now, there was proof. But proof alone wasn't enough. Because the company still refused to accept it, they denied everything, delayed everything, hoping the truth would disappear, hoping the girls would fade away. But they didn't, because now, this was no longer just a tragedy. It was a fight, and it was only beginning. By the time the case reached the court, they were already broken, not just in body, but in everything. Some could barely walk, some could barely speak, but they showed up anyway. They sat in silence, weak, fragile, but determined, because this was their only chance. To be heard, to be believed. Across the room, the company waited, calm, composed, untouched. Their lawyers spoke with confidence. They questioned everything. The symptoms, the science, even the girls themselves. But the truth was no longer hidden. It had a voice now. One by one, the women spoke, slowly, carefully, through pain, through exhaustion. They told their stories, what they did, what they were told, what it did to them. And for the first time, people listened, not as workers, not as rumors, but as victims. The evidence was clear. The damage was real, and it could no longer be denied. The glowing paint was killing them. The case didn't change everything overnight, but it changed something. It forced the truth into the open. It forced the world to see what had been ignored, what had been denied, and what had been allowed to happen. The companies were finally held responsible, not fully, not perfectly, but enough to make a difference, enough to leave a mark. Because of them, laws began to change, workplaces became safer, and silence was no longer acceptable. But the cost was never small. Many of the girls didn't live to see it. They paid the price, with their health, with their bodies, with their lives. And in the end, what remained was a quiet reminder. Something that once looked beautiful, something that once felt harmless. A soft green glow in the dark. Still, faint, still there. A reminder of what it took to be seen and what happens when the truth is ignored.